Thank you very much, Madam Presiding Officer.
Before you begin, Chief Secretary, allow me to address members in the gallery. You are specially invited guests to these sit-ins, and I am asking that from now, moving forward, that all your cell phones be turned off or placed on silent. Should you not comply, you will be asked to leave. Thank you. You may continue.
Thank you very much, Madam Presiding Officer. I wish to thank you, Madam Presiding Officer, to present this motion standing in my name. The motion reads as follows. The Tobago House of Assembly, whereas the Tobago House of Assembly is assigned responsibility for key areas under the 5th Schedule of Act 40 of 1996, and whereas limitations in legislative authority, regulatory control, and financing continue to affect the Tobago House of Assembly's ability to fully execute these responsibilities. And whereas since 1977, following the parliamentary motion moved by the Honorable A.N.R. Robinson calling for internal self-government, the people of Tobago have consistently pursued greater autonomy to manage their own affairs more effectively. And whereas the newly elected government of the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago has pledged improved collaboration with the Tobago House of Assembly, be it resolved, this Assembly welcomes that commitment and signals its readiness to work with the government to advance Tobago's development, and be it further resolved that the government, through the Attorney General and the Chief Parliamentary Council, work with the Tobago House of Assembly to expand its legislative and regulatory authority over key areas of the 5th Schedule and to draft the necessary legal amendments in collaboration with the Tobago House of Assembly's legal team, and be it further resolved that the government review all previous versions of the autonomy bills with input from the Tobago House of Assembly, identify areas of consensus and refinement, and reintroduce the bills in Parliament at the shortest possible period, and be it further resolved that the Chief Secretary transmits this motion and a supporting policy paper to the Prime Minister at the earliest opportunity following its passage. Madam Presiding Officer, I recognize that in this space, what is supposed to be a very simple motion is somehow troubling to a few. So I wish to take my time today to go through with some measure of detail and calmness what is the intent of the motion and what we hope to achieve post the passage of this motion. This motion essentially speaks to the expansion of legislative and regulatory authority for the Tobago House of Assembly. We acknowledge, even now, as we are having this motion, the work of so many others who went before me and went before all of us in this House. Of course, long before there was Robinson, there was Bigat, and thanks to Bigat, this year we'll be celebrating 100 years of the country's first government-assisted Tobago's first government-assisted school and the country's first co-educational school. Because Bigat had to go to Trinidad to make some noise and to say, look, Tobago is being treated indifferently. Tobago is being treated as an outcast. Following him, we had A.P.T. James, and he was the first union member, first union leader to actually represent the island of Tobago. A.P.T. James, lovingly called Fargo, because he was thought to be like that almost indestructible truck when it comes to debates. Then we had in 1977, Tobago making a bold revolutionary step in getting rid of the PNM and voting for one A.N.R. Robinson and Mr. Winston Murray, later on Dr. Winston Murray. And this signaled the post-independence era's fight for autonomy for the island of Tobago. In 1977, in a parliament where they stood alone, where they were the minority of the minority, they were able to get for the people of Tobago, for the first time, the reintroduction of the Tobago House of Assembly through Act 37 of 1980. Their motion gave way to a committee of parliament that later produced the Simongal draft, 1978 to 79. And while Simongal's draft was quite progressive, and while Simongal was a member of the PNM in the parliament, Simongal's draft was too progressive for Dr. Eric Williams that did not value the people, who did not value the people of Tobago. We have had, since then, the likes of Pamela Nicholson, who, along with A.N.R. Robinson during the 17-17-2 arrangement, getting for us what we now have, which is Act 40 of 1996, that expanded the authority and the legislative framework governing the Tobago House of Assembly. And while most of the elements are not enshrined in the Constitution, we have been able, through the work of Ms. Nicholson and Mr. Robinson then, to have enshrined in the Constitution the institution that is the Tobago House of Assembly, the Executive Council, and the position of the Chief Secretary. We have had several other critical contributors to the autonomy discourse, whether it was Dr. Jeff Davidson, who took time in his seminal book to explore the fight, and as he puts it, Tobago versus the PNM, all the way up to Mr. Hochoy Charles. Mr. Charles became the first Chief Secretary in December of 1996. As a matter of fact, the story goes that Mr. Charles and the NAR won the election practically on the same day that the bill was assented to by the president. And therefore, he had the work of building up the infrastructure that we have today called the Tobago House of Assembly. Following him, it will be remiss of me not to mention that also in this fight included the work of former Chief Secretary Mr. Orville London, who must be given credit for having the most extensive public consultations on the issue of Tobago autonomy. And though many in the legal fraternity felt that the Tobago House of Assembly had no authority in law to pass a bill that sought to abridge the Constitution and to then send that down to Parliament, Mr. London pressed forward and in fact passed a bill which was transmitted to Parliament for Parliament to consider and to then enact laws for a new Tobago House of Assembly. Notwithstanding that, Madam Presiding Officer, it must be noted that it took about 10 years, despite the fact that there was PNM in Tobago and PNM in Trinidad, before those bills see the light of any day. If we go to the central government, in 2013, then Prime Minister Kamala Persad-Bissessar, she brought bills to the Parliament, well, a bill to the Parliament, to make major changes to the Constitution. That bill fell flat as the opposition leader and the opposition voiced their opposition to the bill and their feelings that Tobagonians weren't duly consulted, and they walked out on the process. 10 years or so after that, we got in the Parliament bills being introduced by the Dr. Keith Rowley-led central government. There were some committee meetings, some virtual, some involving Tobagonians. And then those bills were placed on hold in 2021 because many Tobagonians felt at that time that those bills did not reflect what they, through Mr. Orville London, sent down to the Parliament. More than that, Madam Presiding Officer, I want to tell you that I was in another place, along with the now Deputy Chief Secretary, and we were part of a team being chaired by then Independent Senator Dr. Remy. There were representatives, plural, from the PNM, representatives from CivilNet, representatives from by the party that is represented by Mr. Nkosi, and all of us in the political space. We sat there in 2021. We went through every single line of the then Keith Rowley's bill. We agreed on areas where there were dissonance between Keith Rowley's bill and what the people of Tobago said they wanted. We recommended solutions that would bring those bills back in alignment with what the people of Tobago wanted. And when it was time to sign on the dotted line, the PNM representatives then said, look, we are comfortable with what's in the bill. Half a loaf is better than nothing. In other words, they were telling Tobagonians, take little and live long. Literally. But there were two brave people in the room, Mr. Hochoy Charles and myself. And we said we will write every single parliamentarian together and highlight the areas that we highlighted through that process that required fixing. That then led to the bill being postponed and a promise that there will be broader public consultation before the bills make their way back to Parliament. Fast forward to 2024. In 2024, as the former Prime Minister was rushing to have a coup in his own party, rushing to prepare for an election, rushing to usher in his 1% friend to be head of the country, the bills were reintroduced again, even without the promised public consultations from 2021. And again, I had to remind the Prime Minister and remind the Parliament that there were elements of those bills that the people of Tobago did not want. And so an aid memoir was sent. Madam Presiding Officer, we are here because when this country got started, the truth is Tobago was not considered. We should not be at this place. When this country was started, and perhaps I should share with you as I dug into my archives what the sentiment was when this country was being started. That will explain why we are still here. And if we go to our then major or lone newspaper in 1962, on the 30th of August, it was a Thursday, the headline says, Trinidad set for independence. This is the day before. So Trinidad is set for independence. Not Trinidad and Tobago, Trinidad set for independence. And then when we look on the day of independence, on August 31st, it says, Trinidad now becomes a nation. Trinidad, not Trinidad and Tobago. This is important. It is important because when our people, and I'm saying our people, using that phrase loosely, went to represent this country in London, at Westminster, to make arrangements for our independence, Tobago was not considered an important enough voice to be in that room. But I'm not surprised, because that has been the underpinning philosophy of the PNM for all of these years. That they must lead, they and they alone must lead, and when they lead, Tobago must not be considered an equal, because in their mind, Tobago is still very much a ward of Trinidad. And so we are here today with a simple motion, yet again, appealing to a new government in Port of Spain, saying to the new government in Port of Spain that this historical injustice is still outstanding, and we have to do something about it. I will not rest, whether I am Chief Secretary or whether I'm ordinary citizen Farley, I will not rest until Tobago gets its autonomy. Because, Madam Presiding Officer, I am resolute in my mind that my daughter must not have the same fight I have. In this house, most members here are under the age of 50. Most of the members here are under the age of 50. And yet, we find ourselves in the same fight. Our parents, our grandparents, our great-grandparents, and all the great-great-great-parents before them had to fight since the decision was taken in Westminster, London, to force Tobago into a country named Trinidad. So we are here. What has happened in the recent past that precipitated us being here? In the recent past, Madam Presiding Officer, I pulled together a team of individuals that included persons from former Chief Secretary London's team, Constitution team, to look at the matter, to prepare documents, and to provide guidance to the National Parliament. We, in very early 2023, provided every single parliamentarian with this matrix. In this matrix, Madam Presiding Officer, it looked at the bill that Mr. London sent to the Parliament. It looked at the Rowley's bill. It looked at the difference between the two bills, and it highlighted the areas for fixes. so that the bills that Dr. Rowley carried before the Parliament will be in alignment with what his own PNM Chief Secretary, Mr. London, sent down to Trinidad. The independent senators confirmed receipt. The members of the opposition, both lower and upper house, confirmed receipt. Members of the government have confirmed receipt. It is only the two reps in Tobago who pretended that they never received this. And that's why Tobago kicked them behind out of office.
Assemblyman Augustine, I am going to caution you about your words. Please retract.
So let me retract.
Apologize to your members.
Apologize to your chair.
And move forward.
And rephrase. And that's why Tobagonians kicked them out of office. Because this bill,
was a point of order. If my ears serve me right, I think you did ask the honorable member to apologize to the members of the House. To apologize to the chair and not the House. So I will want to.
Thank you very much, Madam Presiding Officer. This matrix, Madam Presiding Officer, if it was utilized by the members of the Parliament, it would have averted the disaster that happened in late 2024 when they returned with the bills without adjusting it to meet the demands of the people of Tobago. But one must appreciate that the PNM was never interested in giving Tobagonians what Tobagonians wanted. They were interested in giving Tobagonians what they wanted. I can recall having heated arguments with the then AG, Alwari, the then Minister of Agriculture, Mrs. Robinson Regis as well, about the fact that we did not just even want Tobago to be defined, including its maritime boundaries and its airspace, super-adjacent airspace, but we wanted legislative authority over those spaces. And I could recall Mr. Alwari saying, no, we don't even think it's a good idea that you now have 6 miles under Act 40 of 1996. That is not the best legal position for the country. But it wasn't that it's not the best legal position for the country. It's because the PNM's intent has always been to keep Tobago under their control. And the people of Tobago have always rejected that. So we are here today, Madam Presiding Officer, and this motion is resolute that we do 4 things. The first thing this motion does is that it recognizes the position of the current Prime Minister. The current Prime Minister, who in her maiden speech to the country made it clear that when we sing in our anthem side by side, it must mean that there is equality between the islands of Trinidad and the island of Tobago. Equality between both islands. Not a dogmatic approach, not one island bigger and better and better than the other, not one island being bigger brother. As a matter of fact, if we are to check age, Tobago is by far a much more mature society historically. And I think, Madam Presiding Officer, you are a historian. That's what you studied. This parliament that we're sitting today is older than the Red House that they spent $400 million to renovate, because this institution is older than theirs. And the current Prime Minister, so far, has mooted a position where she believes both islands are equal. And Madam Presiding Officer, so long as the government continues to adopt that as the policy approach, the government will have my support. Any prime minister that sees Tobago as less, that sees Tobagonians as 60,000 crabs in a barrel, cannot get my support. Any prime minister that respects the people of Tobago will get my support. I am on record as saying that Kamala's 2013 bill was flawed, and her approach then was flawed. I am on record as saying that the Rowley bills, they were flawed, and his approach also flawed. And so this motion hopes that Mrs. Prasad Bissessa have learned from her 2013 experience and that she is going to approach this with two different lenses. That's the first resolution, recognizing that the current Prime Minister has adopted an approach where she's saying both islands are equal. The second resolution says, Madam Presiding Officer, that the government to the Attorney General and the Chief Parliamentary Council work with the Tobago House of Assembly to expand its legislative and regulatory authority over key areas in the fifth schedule and to draft the necessary legal amendments in collaboration with the THA's legal team. This second resolution is simple. We, at this moment, have Act 40 of 1996. That is what we have for the foreseeable future. We don't know how long it will take for us to get to the place where a new bill or new bills are reintroduced to the Parliament. We can't, in this House, set that timeline. Only the National Parliament can set such a timeline based on their legislative agenda. Additionally, given what is required to take us to the place to have a new bill introduced to the Parliament, that is fluid. To have new bills introduced to the Parliament, it means, Madam Presiding Officer, that firstly the government have to review all the previous bills that went before the Parliament. It means that in that review process, the Tobago House of Assembly must be engaged. It means that the people of Tobago must be engaged. It means, Madam Presiding Officer, that in order for new bills to get to the Parliament, that legal draftsmen, drafters, have to get involved so that the appropriate legalese and structure is used to the bill. We can't put a timeline on that. And so, what we are saying in this second resolution is that we currently have Act 40 of 1996 that we have not fully utilized. And we are saying to the central government clearly, loudly, firmly, that every single iota of Act 40 of 1996 must be recognized, must be allowed to take place in Tobago based on the law until we get to the place where we can have the new bill or bills presented to the Parliament. We have a fifth schedule in the law that lists some 33 plus areas. And one will recognize easily that there is a difference with how we treat with some areas versus the others. On that list of 33, we have education, including curriculum. This administration is the first one to do something about curriculum and to be actively developing the Tobago-centric curriculum. It didn't happen before because previous THAs just adopted whatever curriculum our Ministry of Education provided. But when we look at the Division of Education, we pay the teachers, we determine when a school opens and closes, we set some policy guidelines for principals, we have district assessments that we do, we are the ones setting up the infrastructure for the schools. We are the ones doing the school repair program. That's been managed from right here. And that's why when we had storms last year, we could have easily said, no school tomorrow. We didn't ask any minister in Port of Spain if we could call off school. We don't. When we go to health through TRHA, this executive appoints by sending down a note to cabinet. We are the ones who select the people for the TRHA board. We set the guidelines for the hospitals. We are preparing right now to install brand new CT scanners at the hospital. Multiple millions worth. No central government decided that as a policy directive for the THA. We decided that. And so it is with so many other areas. When we want to close a road to do repairs, or to close it to do mountain hill climb for motorsport, we are not writing to a minister in Trinidad asking them for permission to do so. No, we're not. We're doing it. So how it is, in some areas of the 5th schedule, we have exclusive executive administrative authority and controls, but we don't have for some other areas. How can we have that for education? Because the law allows for that in the 5th schedule, but we don't have it for town and country planning. But we don't have it for air and seaports. We don't have it for public utilities. So WASA doesn't need to consult anybody here, to ask anybody here about what our priorities are, or where are the areas most affected by the lack of water. They could just come and do what they want. Telecommunications, tea and tech. How come we don't treat with public utilities in the same way we treat with teachers in education, or medical professionals in health, or farmers and fishers in agriculture? Why do we have authority over everything in environment, but really and truly a stifled involvement in EMA? As a matter of fact, one of the court cases with EMA about that road going through Friendship, because, Madam Presiding Officer, you know the PNM utilized agencies of state as though they were PNM party groups. One of
Members, I would ask that you remember when interrupting a member how you go ahead to proceed with that. If you're standing on a point of order, you need to indicate that. And also the member has to give way. Right? Continue, please.
Thank you, Madam Presiding Officer. You see, truth hurts. But in that court case, Madam Presiding Officer, Justice Sipasal, you know what he pointed out? He said, yes, I see where you should be executing the thing, but you don't have an agency. And because you don't have an agency, we have to rely on where there is one. So in other words, the court was beginning to recognize that, look, you're supposed to have your own agency. On Tuesday, I was at the opening of a facility built by a private real estate developer who publicly called me out and said, look, you need to have AMA and town country planning in Tobago because it is stifling private sector growth. And he gave his experience where AMA came to his project. He said to AMA, I don't need AMA approvals for this. AMA gave him a court order to stop. And then 7 months later, writing to say you don't need AMA approval. That is wickedness. And that is deliberate against the people of Tobago.
Assemblyman
deliberate. Madam President.
Augustine, I'm again cautioning you with your words. Please use parliamentary type language in the chamber.
Madam Presiding Officer, these agencies of state have been deliberate in restricting and stifling the growth of Tobagonians. Yes. Customs and excise, licensing. Well, I want to see if the Transport Commissioner will have backative now, to use a colloquial term, to go on television and lie about members of the Assembly, or to send licensing officers at the homes of private individuals.
I was just about to caution him about that. Assemblyman Augustine, please be careful with your words. Retract and continue, please.
I retract, Madam Presiding Officer, and I'll use the word support instead.
You have 5 more minutes
Sure.
of speaking time.
I'll use the word support instead. The Valuations Department, Statistics and Information, to name a few. And allow me to give an example of, a more detailed example about town country planning. I met with the then minister, who is now opposition leader, across at Victor Bruce. She brought her PS, she brought her lawyers, I brought the team from Tobago. We explored the law, look at town country planning, and we said, good, we will start to plan for it. We pledged that we will prepare the space at PRDI. A sign is on the wall right now as we speak, saying town country planning. We pledged financial support for digitizing our records. We pledged to subsume the staff from town country planning, and we proceeded to have Executive Council minutes done and approved to that effect. Our team went down and sat with the Chief Parliamentary Council, the Attorney General's office, members from the Ministry of Planning, and they agreed that we were writing law. Only to come some months after to say, well, if you want town country planning, you have to ask the Prime Minister if you could get it. Not that the law says you can't get it and utilize it, we have to ask an individual to get it. And that's why that resolution is there, Madam Presiding Officer. That resolution asking that we have the Chief Parliamentary Council, who, based on the 6th schedule, is supposed to do work in Tobago, and the Attorney General work with our legal team to iron out those kinks to ensure that every single aspect of the 5th schedule, including things like all businesses paying their taxes in Tobago, that those are realized. And then we go to the other resolution, this penultimate one, that asks the government to review all of the previous autonomy bills, not to throw them away, not to start from scratch, to review all of those. Ensure the THA, it doesn't say the Chief Secretary, it doesn't say the Executive Council, it says the Tobago House of Assembly. That means the minority leader too, that means the member for Roxborough Argyle too, must have a say in this review process as a way of creating something that we can go back to the people with. Because Tobagonians are consultation fatigued. We have done it over and over and over again. And each time Tobagonians have been saying almost identically what they want. And each time successive governments, not just the PNM past, have ignored what Tobagonians have said that they wanted. And then the final resolution says that the Chief Secretary must transmit this motion and a policy paper. So we're not just sending the motion, we are sending a policy paper, and I am pledging to make that policy paper public. A policy paper which should guide the government as to the steps they should take. Those steps must include public consultation. Those steps must include the involvement of the Tobago House of Assembly, not the Executive Council, not the Chief Secretary alone. Those steps must ensure that those bills that are there, whether it's the bills sent down by Mr. London, the Keith Rowley bills, that those bills must be reviewed and taken into consideration. Because I'm a firm believer, Madam Presiding Officer, that nobody in this room have any authority to change what the people of Tobago said they wanted. None. Or to omit. Nobody in this room has done, no one in this room has done extensive consultations. None. And so we may have individual ideas as to how we think this thing should work. But ultimately, what we should rely on should be what the people of Tobago said they want. And as far as I am concerned, the Orville bills reflect that the best. And I've said publicly, let us start from there, because that's what the people of Tobago have said that they want. And this bill, this motion, that I am moving in my name, Madam Presiding Officer, allows us to do just that. Thank you, Madam Presiding Officer.
Honourable members, the question proposed is, whereas the Tobago House of Assembly, THA, is assigned the responsibility for key areas under the 5th schedule of Act 40 of 1996, and whereas limitations in legislative authority, regulatory control, and financing continue to affect the THA's ability to fully execute these responsibilities, and whereas since 1977, following the parliamentary motion moved by the Honourable A.N.R. Robinson, calling for internal self-government, the people of Tobago have consistently pursued greater autonomy to manage their own affairs more effectively. And whereas the newly elected government of the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago has pledged improved collaboration with the THA, be it resolved that this Assembly welcomes that commitment and signals its readiness to work with the government to advance Tobago's development. And be it further resolved that the government, through the Attorney General and the Chief Parliamentary Council, work with the THA to expand its legislative and regulatory authority over key areas in the 5th schedule, and to draft the necessary legal amendments in collaboration with the THA's legal team. And be it further resolved that the government review all previous versions of the autonomy bills with input from the THA, identify areas of consensus and refinement, and reintroduce the bills in Parliament at the shortest possible period. And be it further resolved that the Chief Secretary transmit this motion and a supporting policy paper to the Prime Minister at the earliest opportunity following its passage.